So welcome to my YouTube channel. That's what we call The Good Life. Today I'm going to be telling you about some of my top tips or hacks, things that I wish I'd known sooner when I started gardening. So I'm going to share with you some of my favourite tips. Now I always share tips and hints along the way with my videos, so if you've not already subscribed, if you could please do so, because I'll give you lots of helpful hints and tips all throughout the year from my allotment and my home garden, and from time to time my home kitchen. Now let's get started with some of those top tips and things I wish I'd known sooner. Now there's 6 of them that I consider to be some of my favourite, and some that are really incredibly useful. Now my first top tip is tights. Good old-fashioned tights. You can't believe how useful they can be in the garden or on your home garden. Now the first thing is stacking your pots. Now I don't know about you, but my pots are all over the place. They're a complete mess most of the time, but popping them and in tights and then hanging them up is so incredibly useful. They take up so much less space. So I've got all different sizes and I keep them in tights, and then you can hang them up, and I put them in my summer house when I'm not using them. So that's a really top tip. The other thing you can use for good old-fashioned tights are, you can put your onions in them. So when you've dried your onions and you take the tops off of them, you can put your onions in there, and that's another way of storing your onions rather than having them splayed absolutely everywhere. So that's my first top tip and one of my favourites. I've got to say, the onion one in the tights I've had for years. Putting them in pots was a bit of a newer one, so I wish I'd have known that one sooner, definitely. The other one, I hear lots of people complaining about bad germination when they're sowing seeds, and it is a big problem. And I think now that we don't have it's all peat free, the compost is a lot lumpier. I'm not going to lie to you, but there's a really good hack that I use. In fact, there's a couple that I use that make my germination so much easier. Now I buy any multi-purpose. I'm not fussy which one I buy. I really haven't got a favourite. It's the one that's in the shops, and if I'm honest, it's the one that's on offer. If a nicer one's on offer and it's a little bit dearer, then maybe I'll get that, but generally I'll pick up any multi-purpose. But what I do is I mix it with the cocoa coir, which I get in a block, and you rehydrate in water. And what I do is I mix the two 50-50. Now ever since I've done that, I get much better germination. I think the thing is, with the coconut coir, it's very fine, so when you mix it with the lumpy multi-purpose, it breaks it down a little bit, and that really helps. And I think it also maybe retains the moisture a bit better, but I don't know. Either way, I'll get much better germination. I will put a few links in the description, and I will put a link up on the screen for the coconut coir if you're struggling to get it. It is really easy to buy on Amazon. I've got to say, I do make a bit of money were you to make a purchase. And the other thing I do when I'm sowing small seeds, now these aren't big seeds, I'm talking about very small seeds, like if I'm starting off brassicas, if I'm starting off tomatoes, like the little tiny seeds, rather than cover them with compost, I cover them with a small amount of vermiculite. Now obviously when you put your seeds in, you can just put a mixture of the 50-50 in, but I find a little dusting of vermiculite over the top, that's really handy. Now I will put a link up on the screen and one in the description if you want to get that. Anyway, if you're doing bigger seeds like squashes or pumpkins or beans, they're fine, you just poke them down in the soil. That vermiculite is only for the smaller seeds, and because they only need a very small covering of a soil or of the vermiculite. So that's my tips there. With peas, these are my peas that I've got in my greenhouse. A top tip on germinating any peas or beans, whether they be runner beans, French beans, broad beans, is to soak the peas or the beans overnight in water, to then drain them and put them between some wet tissue, and then once they've germinated, you either direct sow them in the ground or you put them into module trays. I find that I get much better germination when I've done it that way, rather than just putting them either in the module trays or straight into the ground. It just gives them that little bit of a helping hand to sprout. As you can see, these ones are doing absolutely beautifully. I'll be very soon picking these lovely ones too. They seem like they double in size every time I come in here. I come in here daily, and I reckon that's literally doubled since yesterday, or maybe it's just me, so maybe I'll have some of those with my tea tonight. Anyway, I digress. Let's move on to my third top tip. My third top tip, and again I wish I'd known this sooner, is my garlic. I recently dug my garlic, And I've got to be honest, when I first used to dig my garlic, I used to just kind of like dig it, leave it, let it all splay everywhere, and sometimes it used to go mouldy and I had all sorts of problems with it. But I found out that they fit really nicely into the little shelves that you have in your greenhouse or in other shelving. So I take off the outer leaves and I just leave them there to dry, and that they fit in there really, really nicely. I've got a few that are a little bit too small, so I've got a few there just at the side, but they fit in there really, really nicely. You can do the same with your onions as well. You can lay your onions out in a similar way, except you don't need to remove the outer leaves on your onions. But with the garlic, sometimes the outer leaves on these are a little bit icky, and I found that if I've left all the leaves on there, they don't dry very well. In fact, they can go a little bit funny. So I remove a few outer leaves and I just pop them on there. So that's a really, really good hack. So my 5th top tip, and again, I wish I'd known it sooner, is ground cover. So when parts of your allotment aren't covered with crops, I use ground cover, and the reason I do that is because it stops the weeds from growing, it keeps the ground underneath moist, and it just makes life such a lot easier. Complete game changer for me. So here is the area that has got ground cover on it, and just to demonstrate how much of a difference it makes, I recently lifted a little bit of ground cover to put some more squashes and courgettes in. This area here, I literally lifted it up, dug a few tiny little weeds out, not that many at all, and just popped them straight into the ground. It made my life so, if that wasn't covered, the amount of work I would have had to have done, I mean obviously I'd cleared it lightly first, but if I hadn't have covered it, that would have been covered with weeds and I'd have had a lot more work to do. Now I will put a link up on the screen and one in the description if you want to get some ground cover. I use it year after year, it's very durable, I've never thrown a bit away, and it's just incredibly useful. Saves you time and effort, so it's definitely worth it, and has helped me keep my allotment under control, where otherwise when I'm busy I might have struggled. Now let's move on to my 6th top tip and my final top tip for you today. Now my 6th top tip, and again one that I wish I'd been told sooner. Now when we all put our squashes and our courgettes in, they all look really small, easy to water, it's easy to tell where you need to water, because one of the big things with squashes and courgettes, if you don't water them down the side, you know exactly where the stem goes into the ground, one, you're not watering the right spot, but the other thing is if you water on the leaves, it can cause powdery mildew and also some other problems as well. So it's really important that with squashes, courgettes, pumpkins, that you water where the stem is and not all over the leaves. So someone told me ages and ages ago to put a cane in, and obviously you put a bottle on the top, so obviously you don't poke your eyes out. So when the plant gets really big, so at the moment there's loads of space all around them, and I can see where I need to water, but when they fill out and they get really big, they'll mulch into one great big load of green loveliness, and then I won't know where to water. But these make such a big difference. Just an old bottle that we've had drinking, and then just a cane, just so I know where I'm watering. Now I hope you've enjoyed my top tips. If you want an idea of things that you can be sowing this month, then please check out my link on the screen and in the description.